Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Now checking in with our friends from the Better Business Bureau here in Wisconsin. Lisa Schilling is back. And Lisa, we're talking about my favorite stuff, vacation and scams. I don't know if that goes hand in hand, but you have the top 5 vacation scams to watch for when making those travel plans. And it's an interesting list, but overall, do you see a lot of complaints come in when it comes to vacation scams here in the Wisconsin Bureau?
In general, across the board, across the country, and including Wisconsin, we do see complaints come in. One of our first that we mention is the vacation rental con. And this is, vacation rentals are so popular. They're a great option if you want to have the comforts of home when you travel. But when booking your rental, you really have to watch out for listings for properties that either don't exist or are significantly different than what is pictured. I think we probably hear of that, very commonly. A lot of con artists lure in vacationers with the promise of low fees, really great amenities, and then the owner will create a false sense of urgency, like telling a potential client that another vacationer is interested in the rental during the same time as your trip to try to get you to, move a little quicker and make a payment immediately. We're here to remind you, please take time to do your sufficient research, question the legitimacy of the listing, ask a lot of questions in general. I mean, people get so excited, rightfully so, because they're booking a vacation, they can't wait to get to their next destination. But it really takes a little bit of time and some detailed planning, and again, a whole lot of questions.
Yeah, if it's too good to be true, even if it's a vacation, you might want to step back and think twice before pulling the trigger on that and being caught not with what you wanted. The next one is free vacation. I like free. Everybody likes free, but free doesn't always mean free. We're just going to leave it at that.
I was going to say, we all love anything that's free, but it's, really so rare that anything is free. As we all know, there's always a catch, it seems. Yeah, watch out for these, free vacation offers. It doesn't necessarily, again, mean that the trip is entirely without any cost or restrictions, a lot of restrictions involved in any type of, travel winnings or anything of that nature. You need to read the fine print, really watch out for any add-on fees, like air transportation to the port if a cruise is involved, port charges if a cruise is involved, taxes in general, tips in general, and other undisclosed fees. So if you're interested in booking a vacation or a cruise package, we really recommend working with a reputable travel agency, and watch out for any of those, boxes you might see in public places that say, put your name and your phone number and your address in to win a free, weekend getaway, because those always come with undisclosed fees.
Yeah, don't like it. Don't like it. Free just isn't free. There's just no question about that. Next one has to do with third-party booking site scams. So if you're looking for that hotel, that airfare, or whatever the case may be, if you're looking at a third-party site, how do you verify to make sure that it isn't a scam? I think is important if you are trying that.
Oh, I cannot recommend it enough. You really have to do your research when it comes to these third-party booking sites. This is probably one that I would say we see the most uptick in. We've seen the most uptick in the last, 2, 3 years at least. A lot of times people are jumping online and they're booking their own trips these days very often. So they might Google the name of the hotel that they want to stay in or the name of the airline that they want to travel on. And they start clicking around and don't realize they have now been moved to a third party site. And they're moving forward, putting in their contact information, their credit card, their different payment information. And, it's not until later that they actually find out that they were on a third party website. And sometimes they find out when it's too late. They might get a call to say that their flight's been canceled. They must pay additional fees or an email warning them of that, or even a text message. So that's oftentimes when they learn, that they really weren't on, the JW Marriott Hotel website. They were on something completely different. Really pay attention to those URLs. They can change in an instant. It actually happened to me So I know this firsthand. Very hard to tell, unless you're really paying close attention to the URL. And again, those URLs can change as you're clicking through. So pay constant attention to them and look for, even one letter to be off. Instead of the word Marriott, it might say Marriott's, and you might not pay attention to that S at the end. So things to look for, copy that URL, paste it into bbb.org. Make sure you're reading customer reviews from other consumers, checking with BBB, on the free reports that we offer. And just doing your research as thoroughly and as most as you can beforehand.
Well, I think too, you find these because they're probably like some really good deals, right? You're like, ooh, this is like really good deal. It's cheaper than going to the actual source, or you're like thought it was the source and it was a fake site, all as you had mentioned. So also seen that and been down that path, not good. It can happen to anybody, trust me. Next one along the similar lines, hotel scams too. Again, I assume the same interest here of you just got to be careful when you're trying to find these best deals, and I think that's probably where your mindset is man, I want to find the best deal. I know that's going to have multiple prices out there, but that could open you up to scams as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are those hotel scams to be aware of. When you're staying in a hotel, you want to be aware of, fake front desk calls where scammers call, usually late at night or right after you've checked in. They try to impersonate the front desk. They let you know that there's a problem with your credit card on file. They, need a new one, or they need to verify some information or re-verify the credit card information. Can you give it to me one more time? Look out for things like that. Free Wi-Fi connections. There's Wi-Fi skimming. It targets travelers with the promise of free internet access, but then scammers can set up a fake connection that appears to be free hotel Wi-Fi, but it's not necessarily safe. They'll control the connection through their computer and collect all of the data, while you, the traveler, is transmitting, passwords and credit card information and more. So, be your own best advocate. You can't be too, safe and secure with your information. And then there's the fake food delivery. Scammers will distribute fake menus to hotel rooms, and then when the traveler calls the phone number to order the delivery, the scammer's collecting the credit card information and not delivering the food. So just a couple things to watch out for, be aware of.
You get a lot when you check in at hotels sometimes, a lot of information. You ought to read that information and see, because they provide menus, they provide the what the Wi-Fi is supposed to be. They provide some of the things you had just mentioned that you should be watching out for. And if you're not sure, ask. Just ask go to the source, right? Like find the source and make sure it's legit. Final one here is timeshares, which I suspect we could spend a lot of time talking about timeshares, but this has to do with reselling cons. So timeshare reselling cons, that just doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah, I mean, this usually targets the owners of timeshares. And, we've seen and heard through, the last many years that it's really hard for owners of timeshares to sell those timeshares. And a lot of times, they can will them to their family members. A lot of times the family members aren't interested in them. And so this actually created, a whole nother scam for perpetrators to come out of the woodwork and buy and sell lists of owners of timeshares and call those owners and say that they're interested in purchasing the timeshare. They might pretend to be a real estate broker or a real estate agent, or even a company that's, looking to buy a bunch of timeshares so that they can house the clients that they're planning on, having travel to their destination, to their spot. So, watch out for any phone calls that you get unsolicited offering to purchase your timeshare. A lot of times people are pressured into paying for, fees that, are supposed to be going towards the sale of that timeshare, but, they never ever materialize.
All right. Well, if you want to learn more about vacation scams or just general information as you are planning your trip this summer, I'm sure on BBB there are some great resources, Lisa, that folks can learn about.
Yes, bbb.org is where you should start.
All right, Lisa, thank you so much. Safe travels out there, everyone. We want you all to be safe as you book up these fun travels. Appreciate your time, Lisa.
Thank you.